The causes of the Great War was the mutual defenses alliances, imperialism, nationalism, militarism, and the assassination of Archduke Franz. Mutual defense alliances. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, which Russia got involved to defend Serbia. And Germany, seeing Russia mobilizing, declared war on Russia. And France was then drawing against Germany and Austria-Hungary. Germany attacked France, though Belgium pulling Britain in war. Then Japan entered the war. Later, Italy and the United States would enter on the sides of the Allies. Imperialism. The countries increased their power and wealth by bringing additional territories under their control, and that increased the competition and desire for greater empires. That led to an increase in confrontation that helped push the World War I. Nationalism. Much of the origin of the war was based on the desire of the Slavic peoples in Bosnia and Herzegovina to no longer be part of Austria-Hungary, but instead be part of Serbia. In this way, nationalism led directly to the war. Militarism. The military establishment began to have a greater influence on public policy. This increase in militarism helped push the countries involved to war. Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. On June 28, 1914, a teenage Serbian nationalist gunned down Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. And this death quickly set off a chain of reactions of events, outbreaking of the World War I. The Great War characteristics and causes. The Great War, also known as the World War I, was characterized by the trench warfare, which was opposing armies would dig sophisticated trenches into the earth in order to provide themselves with cover. And it was really bad because the men living in the trenches experienced appalling conditions. Another characteristics of the World War I was the first truly modern war, because there was never before a technology that was put so much to destructive ends. On land and at sea and in the air, mechanized warfare was carried out with devastating efficiency. Also, the Great War was truly known as the First War because it was the first time using the tanks, and the tanks are awesome, you know. And the world's first combat tank was invented by the British, and it was called the Mark I. And it was first saw action in September 1916 in the Battle of the Somme. And also the submarines and the modern poison gas also had their first widespread use in the World War I.
In the Treaty of Versailles, the United States, France, and Britain blamed Germany for the start of war, and it consisted of the following terms. Number 1. Germany would take blame for the start of World War I. This is because the main event, which was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was followed by the support from Germany to Serbia, which led to Russia and every other country to get involved in the war. Number 2, Germany would have minimal military. This meant that it could only have a certain amount of military equipment and army. They were forbidden to have any force, air force, or submarines. They could only have a navy of 6 battleships and an army of 100,000 men. And finally, they were not allowed to place any troops in any other country's land. And number 3, payment. In addition to the previous 2 points, Germany was commanded to pay for any damage caused during the war. This payment included money and the repartition of territories gained by the country along its history. The quantity of money agreed by these countries for Germany to pay was of 33 billion, money that Germany did not have. This led to France and Belgium to send troops invading Germany in order to take things that could make up for some of the debt. Germany was left in severe economical instability, and the government started printing more money than they actually had, which resulted in major debts and the US getting involved. However, with the Great Depression in the US, it could no longer finance Germany, and this led to a total collapse in their economy. Some of the biggest consequences for Germany after the treaty were the following. Massive territory loss. This meant 10% of its land and 12% of its population gone. The financial impact on the country after being held accountable for war costs and damage, and the political impact. The government that was in charge at the time of the treaty refused to sign it and resigned, leaving the new government no choice but to accept the treaty. This left the German people feeling betrayed by their government and politicians.
Totalitarianism regime in Japan. Hideki Tojo was born in 1884 in Tokyo. Since he was young, he decided on a career in the army. He did it so well at military college that he became the leader of militarists in Japan. In the summer of 1940, Tojo became Minister of War in the government, and he saw that Japan's future lay with the European dictators, especially Hitler, who were much admired in Japan. As Minister of War, he was convinced that a war with America could not be avoided, and he put Japan on full war alert. He thought that a massive knockout blow would be sufficient to remove America from the Pacific. As a result, Toyo authorized the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. The huge success by the Japanese army strengthened Toyo's standing in Japan. Totalitarianism today. These days, totalitarianism government is defined as a single-party dictatorship that controls all aspects of public and private life, where citizens do not enjoy individual rights such as freedom of expression. Totalitarian governments usually promote extreme nationalism and employ brutal tactics to silence critics. They also censorate information flow in the country. Also, the internet is severely restricted. Totalitarian government control is not limited to politics. It also extends over social, cultural, economic, and private aspects of life. Some current and recent examples of places under totalitarian government include North Korea dictatorship that started with Kim Il-sung and later keep going with Kim Jong-il, and nowadays is followed by Kim Jong-un. Other examples can be China with Mao Zedong or Iraq with Saddam Hussein.
The ideology of Tojo's regime was the fascism, that is a governmental system led by a dictator that has complete power, oppresses the oppositions, regimenting all industry and commerce, has an aggressive nationalism and often racism. The economic system of Tojo's regime was the communism, that is a system in which all economic activities is controlled by a totalitarian state with a dictator or a single party. The human rights that Tojo violated were the Article 3 that says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person because he killed people like Chinese to get what he wanted. Article 4 no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms because he used to get women for sex slave for the army brothel. Article 5 no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, because he used to torture people. Article 1 all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience, and should act towards another in a spirit of brotherhood, because he was breaking some of the human rights instead of treating them well.
The Great Depression. After the First World War, the world's economy had been drained. Trading goods became extremely difficult and decreased. 40% of Britain's fleet had been sunk, making it difficult for Britain to trade. Germany was also severely injured by the war, due to the fact that they now faced a 33 billion debt. Germany printed an excessive amount of cash. This created a hyperinflation issue, so much that in the year 1923 you had to fill a wheelbarrow with cash to buy a loaf of bread. People even used cash as wallpaper for decoration. In 1921, Warren Harding became the President of the United States. With him, America's unemployment rate decreased from 11.7 to 2.1 between 1921 and 1923. Everything seemed great. Great technologies were hitting the masses, from automobiles to televisions. American farmers, however, were not faring well, as crops were being cheaply imported from Europe again. There was no longer a high demand for American crops, as there had been during the war. But America's economy took a turn for the worse in October 1929, when the stock market crashed. This is how the Great Depression was born. Business was low and unemployment was high. 85,000 businesses failed. Unemployment shot up from 3.2% in 1929 to a staggering 23.6% in 1932. Banks were forced to close as they had loaned money to European and American businesses and didn't have enough money to honor the deposits.